Magick.me is the world's greatest school for magic, meditation, and mysticism. You can learn everything there, from chaos magic to hermeticism to meditation to how to supercharge your finances and take absolute control of your destiny. In short, you get all of the tools you need to turn chaos into beautiful, scintillating order and master your life. It's incredible. You've probably heard me talk about it on the show quite a lot. But check it out. It's growing fast. And I just want to say, if you're confused about where to start, because I have so many courses there, the Adept Initiative is the place to go. The Adept Initiative is the flagship course on Magick.me, and it contains everything you need to know to master the most profound ancient techniques of changing your consciousness and the most modern and cutting-edge tools and systems for absolutely turning your life into a masterpiece. You are really going to dig it. Go check it out, and I will see you in class. It's magick.me, magick.me. Tell us who you are, Mark.
Are we starting already?
This is going to be the spooky Halloween episode, because this is going to come out Monday, shit. Which I think is technically Halloween, right? 26.
I think that's Halloween Day.
30, it's the 30th. It'll come out the 30th.
Look at that.
Right?
We got 2 days to enjoy the spookiness.
Yeah, so this is the super spooky, spooktacular, too spooky for me episode. It's like the
Halloween spooktacular.
It's like have you ever seen the Star Wars holiday special?
Of course, it's fantastic. It's a masterpiece of trash.
Oh yeah, it's so awful. And it has like all these like 70s like daytime TV stars in it, like Bay Arthur.
Yeah,
and things like that.
Great.
Yeah,
and isn't Art Carney in it?
Yeah, Art Carney is in it. Yeah. Exactly. So it's like that. Or it's like, no, the most insane part of that is, and now I don't even remember why. God damn, this has been happening to me recently. Because
this is the holiday episode. This is the Ultra Culture holiday special.
Yeah. So it's right. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So I was gonna say that much like 70s daytime television cheesy shows with Art Carney in them and Bay Arthur, Ultra Culture is going to have a holiday episode, but only for Halloween, because that's the only one that really matters.
It's true. I'm excited that I get to be that. The Art Carney.
You're the Art Carney
of Ultra Culture.
Do you remember the part in that show where like Chewbacca's grandpa or something like that puts on a VR helmet? And Jefferson Starship, there's like a Jefferson Starship stripper routine going on in it. And it's just like, this goes on for like 10 minutes of him being like,
yeah. And he's just there just watching this awful. And there's a whole Chewbacca family, and Chewbacca's got kids, and I forget their names, but they're just, the whole family's thoroughly unsettling. It's just, it's this nightmare fuel.
The kid looks really weird. Like he looks like something that's going to run at you from the New Jersey Pine Barrens at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
with red glowing eyes. Yeah. Yeah. What was the deal with that? It came out like in 1978 on like, I don't even know, ABC or NBC or something like that. And it was like,
it was such a failure that they were like, this will never see the light of day again. But one person recorded it.
It's like, but it's wait, really only one person recorded it?
I think that's the urban legend is that someone recorded it, and from that one recording, it never died.
There's so many things like this where it's like in the olden days where things could just be lost if they were not preserved.
That's kind of what I do. It's part of the fun of what I'm doing.
So tell us about yourself, Mark, because I guess we are starting a podcast.
What a natural segue.
I mean, we could talk about Art Carney, but go on.
I put out books. Someday I hope to put out Jason Louv books, but I'm not that fancy yet. One of these days, it's going to happen.
That might be more of like a horseshoe theory type thing, where
we're talking fringe now, man.
Yeah.
We're way out there.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
So how long have you been?
I mean,
go on.
No, by all means. This is your show. This is your world. I'm just I'm one of your many avatars.
Well, we've known each other for like 10 years or something at this point, which is fucky.
Yeah, it has been.
We met
at least, right? Which is pretty wild. We've always been skirting this dance, and here we finally made it happen.
Yes, I think we met at a Clive Barker art show.
We did
at Century Guild.
Yeah, at a Century Guild gallery exhibition, and it was love at first Scientology joke, you know?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, now that I don't live in LA, I get to talk about Scientology way less, which is probably good. There's a lot of things now that I've left LA. Maybe you have this experience as well, just being like slightly removed from it. There's a lot of things that I just think about, and I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what was I thinking, doing? Why did this seem normal at the time? Like, there's so much stuff like
that. Matheson called LA the creeping terror, because it is. It just sort of overtakes you and invades every aspect of your personality. It's the strangest. I love living just on the outskirts, because I'll have meetings in LA and I can just feel it sort of washing off of me the further away I get.
Yeah, that's real.
So it's nice to be able to access it when I need to, but it's also nice not to have to dwell there and become an LA person.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing your current company?
We started Encyclopocalypse in 2018, I think, was the first thing I put out was an audiobook version of my Hellraiser novella. And it was just like a test, you know. I thought I'd learned how to do it from digitizing Clive's library, and I thought, hey, I think I can do this myself. I was always trying to get other people as part of Clive's catalog, because I thought, well, you know, we have his books, but we could have all these other revenue streams if we brought other people's books on and made them part of, you know, like Seraphim Publishing or something. And he never wanted to do that because he was exclusively in the Barker business. So eventually I just said, well, how about I do it instead? And so I started with my Hellraiser, my little Hellraiser tome. Nice. And from there, it did well enough that I just kept reaching out to other authors I knew, and books that I loved that had long been out of print or never had audiobook versions, and really just made a library out of sheer laziness, because I didn't have the time to read them. And I thought, hey, I can listen to them if I make them myself. And I did.
Wow. So 200 books is a freaking lot in 5 years. Are you just...
Yeah, last time we talked, I was still, like you mentioned, I was still trying to figure out how to work, my cloud lifter.
Yeah.
I was in the studio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It wasn't loud enough, and I needed that phantom power.
You were just getting started.
That extra boost. Yeah. And now we're in that double digits, triple digits. What are numbers? What
are numbers? What are magnets?
It's a deeper question. Magnets.
How do they work?
Magic?
They might be magic.
ICP reference in the first 15. We made it.
Did you know that there is will be of particular interest to people who listen to the show. Did you know that there's an Insane Clown Posse role-playing game?
No.
Okay.
Is it digital? Is it what are we talking about here?
It's a book, and it's almost impossible to find. It's called Morton's List, and it gets passed around at like a gathering of the Juggalo events. And it is this insane. Have you played it? No, but it's like almost impossible to get a copy of it. But there's like a short version floating around on the internet that you can find. But basically, what this is it's not actually related to ICP, but the Juggalos love it. It's like you roll dice, and it tells you to do various random activities to cause chaos in the real world.
Okay.
So there's ones that are like, build a bridge out of popsicle sticks. And then there's ones that are like sneak into the Pentagon. and things like that. And it's just like this total.
And the only rules in Morton's list are you cannot wipe off Violent J or Shaggy 2 Dubs makeup.
Yes, you definitely cannot do that.
It's the 2 rules.
You can't become
entire game.
You can't be stepping like that. But yeah, it's like this amazing like chaos magic, but like with this like meth head vibe all over it. And I really want to get a copy of it. Anyways, total tangent.
Do they have a tarot deck too? That'd be pretty.
They should if they don't. Hilarious. Yeah, everyone's got a tarot deck but me now.
Juggalo. Yeah, we need an Encyclopocalypse tarot deck. There you go. We should do an Ultra Culture Apocalypse collab deck.
There you go. So do you just do audio versions of books?
No, we do all kinds. And that's why this book I'm holding is one of our very own. We started with the audio when you and I were first talking, and you were giving me audio advice. We started doing the audio, and then that's dope. That's dope. When all kinds of crazy shit when the world fell apart, we ended up doing
books.
We did physical books. So now we do physical books, ebooks. We even have a couple. I got these over here. Yeah. We got graphic novels.
Wow.
We just released a new one called Tech. He works at Alamo. Draft House Theaters. Yeah. Alamo is the one. I always forget which one's the chain and which one's the kingdom.
The Rent-A-Car. The Rent-A-Car.
Yeah.
Alamo Draft House in Austin.
So he's in charge of programming at Draft House Theater.
Wait, is that a national chain?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, all right.
It is. He just went on like a 15 or 20 theater tour at all the different draft houses across the states, selling and signing books.
Oh, nice.
It was cool. And we just released Tech by Vincenzo Natali, who directed Cube and Splice and an episode of Cabinet of Horrors and stuff. He wrote and illustrated a graphic novel. It's his COVID project as well. And we published that.
That's awesome.
So it's been fun, man. It's been wild.
What's I was talking to Christina Ward, the editor at Feral House, and she was saying that the big trend right now is escapism. Like people want to escape, which I completely sympathize with.
Sure.
Are you kind of seeing that too? Like people are kind of like flocking to fantasy worlds?
Yeah, for sure. And like you, I think I can understand why they would. I have not been into escapism lately. I've been the exact opposite. I think I get all my escapism out in my work now, and my personal life is now very much. I don't know. I guess it's a different kind of escape. But what's very interesting is the timing with which we've reconnected, because I was listening to your episode. I was listening to some of the episodes to catch up because I didn't want to be the only one here just talking about publishing and boring shit. And some of your episodes, man, holy shit. Like I listened to, what was her name? Jessa.
Jessa Reed.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great one.
What a deep dive, dude.
Yeah. Whenever I can do the episodes in person, that was an in-person one. Whenever I can do them in person, it's just way better. But I mean, it's awesome to be able to do it like this too on Zoom. But in person is always better, but not always possible. Yeah.
We're not all lucky enough to not be in California.
Yeah. Well, Texas has its own issues, just like everywhere. But yeah,
sure. Yeah, no, it's interesting being an American these days.
Yeah, it's a special time.
I was listening to that other one. Now I've forgotten it because I was losing consciousness. But I was going through a lot of the kundalini stuff and your Q&A little short videos from some of your classes. All that stuff was kind of blowing my mind.
Cool.
But I think, I mean, it's, there's always going to be the sort of the popular stuff, which is not really what, like, I wouldn't peg you as an overt Marvel fan. You know, you don't strike me as a guy that puts on the Iron Man trilogy on a loop.
You'd be surprised. I mean, like, I definitely will like dog the so there's two Marvels. Okay, there's like, in my mind, there's like the Marvel that is actually just really entertaining movies and comics and very nostalgic, and then there's like the Marvel that is a symbol for everything that is bad and wrong with millennials and neoliberalism. And it's just and that's like the Funko Pop Marvel. And that is just this awful
Funko Pop culture, man. That's a whole conversation.
No. So, but no, I actually did. I once marathoned the entire MCU series all the way up to Endgame, I think.
It's a gauntlet.
It is indeed a gauntlet, Mark. I see what you did there. Yes.
I come with the jokes, you know.
I only watch those movies for that raccoon, though. Rocket Raccoon.
Rocket Raccoon.
He's everything to me. I
James
care
Gunn
less
is
about the
breathing
rest.
life into the MCU.
Yes.
You know, there. So I mean, it's kind of like that. There's the Marvel version of, you know, horror, which is not really my bag, and it always makes a shitload of money. But it seems like people, like, those are the movies that people just love to hate. Like the new Exorcist movies, you know, they're doing a whole trilogy. It's going to happen. And it's
a new trilogy.
Yeah. The new one just came out. The first of the trilogy just came out, and I haven't seen it, but the reviews are like, you know, probably some of the worst you'll ever read on the internet. But it's making $1 kajillion.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So, but I feel like, you know, there always have to be those franchises where people will just continue to shell out money, but all they really want to do is bitch about it.
Yeah. That's kind of that. Yeah.
And I'm a big, and this is going to sound cliche, and it's a total cinema bro comment, but I'm a huge A24 fan.
Okay.
I think the stuff that A24 is making is fucking terrifying.
That is a huge cinema bro comment.
I told you.
Yeah.
I'm nothing if not at least a self-aware cinema bro.
Very good. So you think they're doing really good stuff, though?
I think they're doing great stuff. God, man. I didn't know we were going to have a special guest. My cat's normally wants nothing to do with me. She never pays attention to me. She never even comes into this room. And then, of course, we start doing this, and she's just screaming.
They're very attracted to attention, I've noticed.
Is that what it is?
I think so,
because she knows now that, like, I could be paying attention to her, but I'm paying attention to you instead.
Well, the attention is where the food is. So if she's dependent for you on food and your attention is on something that's not her, then that's potentially a life-threatening situation. That's at least what I concluded with my pets.
She's gonna say, see that? She's trying it. That's her little. Sometimes she'll try to open that window and she can do a view spot. This is thrilling podcasting with no visuals, by the way. Hereditary, man. Hereditary scared the shit out of me.
Man, fucking Hereditary. Let's talk about Hereditary.
It's a divisive movie.
I literally felt violated by that movie. Like, in a bad way. In a bad way.
Yes.
It was like somebody like keyed my car. I like walked out of that movie like, fuck you, whoever made this movie. Just fuck you. Like, there's a lot of stuff about that movie. I think, and part of that fuck you is, like, he really hit on like levels of family trauma that like have not been in movies before, outside of maybe like Rosemary's Baby or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Or Carrie. And I was just like, so like, like, props to you. This movie is amazingly well done. But fuck you still. And also, like, putting real demons into movies is extremely irresponsible, in my opinion. Yeah, and then all these freaking Satanist kids get really like, then they start like making it their thing, just like they did with The Witch. And if I have to hear one more freaking person talk about living deliciously,
Wouldst thou like the taste of butter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a witch fan, which is funny. It's the new hot topic.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing about Hereditary, man, is it really gets under your friggin' skin.
It does.
It's an ugly, ugly movie. And it's I think the best movie and the scariest movie that I will never recommend to anybody.
That's a good description of it.
It's not fun, you know? It really...
It makes you a worse person.
Did you see that dude's new movie, Beau is Afraid?
No, I haven't heard of it. What is
also horrifying. Again, it's the whole thing it's 3 hours long. It's a 3 hour long movie about mommy issues. And the entire film is this guy, Beau, Joaquin Phoenix, his mom dies and he has to get to her funeral. And the entire movie is him. It's like Sullivan's Travel. He's trying to get to the funeral, and no matter what he does, no matter how hard he tries, he cannot get there. And family members just keep calling him going, "We're really disappointed in you." And it's a comedy, but it's just as, it's longer than Hereditary. So the dread factor, is just by sheer, per screen average. It's so much worse. It's so much tenser.
It's worse?
Than Hereditary.
It's worse?
It's worse.
Wait, what the
It's
hell?
worse.
Oh, Jesus.
It's worse.
Oh, no.
Movie about, going back home to see your dead mother. And it's monstrous. Can you hear that, by the way? Are you hearing the, okay. My WhatsApp is going off on my computer and I want to make sure it's not recording.
Are you doing business? Are you doing business in
DMD. How'd you know? It's where all the business is.
It's where you
can't get enough Fright Night in India.
Nice. Are you getting your books made in China, by the way? How are you having them produced?
It's all print on demand right now.
Okay.
Offset printings for the birds, man.
Yeah. Do you see
them printed as they order them?
Do you see the publishing industry adopting that finally, or is it still
eventually? Yeah,
it's just like the thing about print on demand. Like print on demand became feasible in 2004, 2005. Yeah, and I did.
It's been a while,
and it's just like it makes sense. It's like infinitely better for the environment because you don't end up with whole warehouses full of books that you have to destroy,
right. Just sitting there rotting.
And then people don't have to, I don't know. Did you ever work at a bookstore?
No.
So
I used to, almost lived at them.
There you go.
Would ride my bike there and just stay there, all day long.
So do you know about book stripping?
Enlighten me.
Yeah. So this is something we used to have to do in the book business, which I worked in bookstores as a teen, all throughout my high school and junior high. Mass market paperbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Are worth less to the publisher than the amount of money it takes to mail them back. So instead of mailing, if you have to do returns for them, you strip them, which is just you rip the cover off and mail the cover back. And then it's illegal. And then it's illegal to give the leftover book to a library or a school or anything like that. It legally has to be thrown out, and it can't be resold or donated. It's utterly wasteful and destructive and horrible.
And
print on demand solves that.
And print on demand solves that, and waste and destruction are part of the human condition.
Yes.
So maybe that's why
waste and destruction will find a way. But
absolutely, as Jeff Goldblum once said,
it just boggles my mind that and it's economically more feasible. It boggles my mind that the publishing industry has not gone completely to print on demand. Yeah.
It's they do things to try. I don't know what big publishing is said in the same manner of big tobacco, whatever. I don't know what their motivation is. I don't know who's still trying to finance offset printing. I don't know who's whispering in their ear that the print on demand model is not the way to go. Because there seems to be a plan to try to stop independent publishers who do print on demand from getting into bookstores. And every time we have found a way to make it into a Barnes and Noble will suddenly change the way that you're allowed to submit books, and it just keeps happening. It's crazy.
Wow, why? That is crazy.
I don't know.
You think that's a concerted, intentional effort?
Yes, and I don't know why. One employee, like, we had a buyer. I mean, I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to say this. Like, is it going to cause more problems? We had a person who was buying for us at a Barnes and Noble. They were a big fan. They kept stocking our books and posting it, and they got chastised. They got in trouble for buying our books because they were print on demand.
Why? Like what?
I don't know. I have no idea.
That's
and every time we find like we can do it this way now, we'll get in there, and we're back in bookstores for a couple of months, and then they're like, oh no, now we're shutting this wing down, and we're back to finding another way in. It's really strange.
That's really frustrating. I mean, and it's like the book business has just been like a fucky McFuckerton wasteland since as long as I've been aware of it. I don't even know what that means. It's just words put together. But
it's a feeling.
It communicates a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
There was the consolidation in the 90s. There was the Hachette lawsuit with Amazon. There was Amazon destroying retail. I mean, it's the book business is insane, and the only people who work in it are like just literally mentally ill people who have martyr complexes. So like, which is another way of saying they do it for the love of it.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
AKA. That's great.
but it's crazy. It's just one of these obvious things. It's like, not to make it political, but it's like people will talk about like the genius of capitalism, how like the market will always create a solution. And it's like, that would be great if it was true, but it doesn't. It's like constantly just creating like bureaucratic paperwork fuck up. Like somebody has
Lovely
to
words
keep
and
their job.
Sure.
Yeah. Man, it's just like one of these. Print on demand is just such an obvious technological advance over offset printing. And that, I guess, allows them to gatekeep, and it allows them to maintain some type of like class position where they're like, we're the real publishing and you're not.
Right.
Yeah. So
you can't afford, to print 500,000 books like we can.
Right.
So we win. Maybe it's just as simple as that. Maybe you're totally right.
Yeah.
That sort of gatekeeping by volume.
Well, also, just thinking about it, it means that if they did open print on demand to big box stores, that would mean that they would remove the barrier to entry to the publishing industry entirely.
Right.
So anybody could put books into Barnes and Noble like they were blogging, which, if it was well curated, could be awesome. But that's a completely different industry now. It's like, it could also be terrible because now it's like kind of like printed material. Printed material is the last thing that's untouched by the corrosion of the internet. And so it could also totally destroy that. It's like, as you know, it's like everyone thinks they can write a book, because it's like they write emails.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
We could just be.
I write all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
I can totally write a book.
So.
That was beautiful though. Printed material is the last thing untouched by the corrosion of the internet.
Sadly. But if you've done 200, go ahead.
I was in a movie. A friend of mine made a short film called Billy Kills the Internet. And give a shout out to Billy Kills the Internet. I play the internet.
Nice.
And spoiler alert, I do die.
Oh.
But it's one of my favorite experiences was being with the director. His name's Lon, and we were at an award show, the Film Thread Award show, and he won Best Short. And he was, he genuinely believes in the message. It's a hilarious film, told with 100% conviction. And he had no idea he was going to win. He got up there. He'd had a couple of drinks, and he's normally a really funny, gregarious guy. And he starts talking, and there was no there was no irony. There was no patois, or there were no bon mots. It was just, he gets up there and he goes, "We got to shut it off, guys. We have to stop it."
Wow.
And he just kept saying it, and then they played him off.
That's amazing.
It was like a hero moment. He's like, "Really, I'm not kidding. We have to stop it." It was like Tom Atkins at the end of Halloween 3. Turn it off!
Yeah.
Just screaming. See, there's your Halloween reference.
There you go.
Now we're a holiday
episode. Well, yeah, I mean, well, if you've done 200 audiobooks in 5 years, that must mean there's like a lot of interest. I mean, it's going well for you. People are still reading.
Well,
so people are still reading. Okay.
Absolutely.
So answer me this question, because I'm always trying to figure this out. Like the received wisdom was and is always that people's attention spans have been ruined because of, first it was TV and now it's the internet. They used to say it about MTV, now it's the internet.
I'm sure it was radio before that.
Yeah.
Radio ruined civilization.
Yeah, probably novels probably, they said probably rotted people's brains.
This?
I'm sure they did actually. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is for housewives, So, fuck was I saying? God damn it.
You can always tell how old someone is by what they think is what ruined the world. Like that's,
yes.
I was talking to a dude who was so old that he was of the mindset that it wasn't radio, it wasn't television, it was air travel. Air travel is what ruined
well, being that air travel is what spreads pandemics. I mean, that's that could, he might have a point there.
To be made.
Yeah.
But you're asking about attention span.
Oh, right. Okay. So thank you. But I don't think that I don't think that right. Exactly. Ironically, very good. Yeah. What was I talking about? There you go. There you have it. So present company included, meaning myself. The received wisdom is that always that technology has lowered people's attention spans, but I don't think that that's true. And I think that that's proven not to be true by the fact that people love 3-hour podcasts. They love long ass, like people will sit and watch like a 5-hour YouTube that like a video essay that a 12-year-old did about Call of Duty. I'll watch stuff like that. It's just like, look, like I gotta shave, I gotta cook, I gotta do the dishes. I need some shit to listen to. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, you want to
get invested in.
You want to talk about the the deep, gender politics of Metal Gear Solid for 2 hours? Great, go for it.
Sign me up. I'm in. Yeah, I mean, if Red Letter Media can be one of the most popular channels on YouTube, I don't think they make videos under 3 hours long. So, and then people are always, you got to watch their thesis on the new Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, no, I don't. But people love it, and it's like a whole new thing. People love long stuff. So I was going to ask you, it's like, okay, so it's like this whole. Here's my question to you, and I think that you're better poised to answer this than perhaps anyone else I know. Fiction writing. The classic, what people have said is, people don't have the attention span for it anymore. That's a thing of the past. Do you see a model that's possible for writing fiction and people will consume it, like podcasts, things like that, where all of a sudden, like, they will re-embrace it? And I don't mean like diehard fans from the past. I mean, new people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might just be a matter of the way it's packaged. I think that's really the only thing that changes. Is people want story. It's just the way that you present it to them. Okay. Does that make sense? It does. Is that a decent answer?
Yeah. What would examples be of things that you've seen work?
Well, okay, here's a perfect example is actually a quote from R.L. Stine. I was on a panel with him once at a horror convention, and he talked about his process and how it was heavily research involved. He didn't just sit down one day and go, I think I'm going to write some horror books for kids. He researched the marketplace. He researched the language. He read books, that were geared toward the exact demographic he was going for. he went into this very in-depth discussion about or description of how much he put into making books accessible to young readers, because the entire panel was kind of geared around this very question, which is, how do we keep people engaged? How do we keep people wanting to read? And R.L. Stine just brilliantly said, just write better books. Because all these, there's all these people on stage going, well, kids aren't buying my books.
Maybe they're not good.
What's the and he just destroyed the whole panel by just saying, write better books, man. That was it. It's the only.
And so that's your answer. That you have no.
That's my answer.
You don't think there's a format tweak needed of going to audio or anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
Just write good stuff.
Write good stuff, and you can make. We did one with this author Dinah Manoff. She was in Greece. She's in a documentary I'm producing right now. And she wrote this book that didn't have an audiobook. And I approached her after we interviewed her and said, hey, what do you think of doing an audio version of the book? And she pitched back to me doing a full cast reading. But rather than adapting it as, like an audio play, it's literally she's reading all the prose and she just cast, 30 people to be the various characters. And it's one-to-one. It's the book.
Damn.
But it took us like 2 years to finish it. And it just came out and it's fantastic, but I think it's great. It's super fun. And I think that, makes maybe for a book that is lengthy and sort of, like a Hollywood melodrama in the vein of like Postcards from the Edge, that might not be palatable to someone who wants to pick it up and read it. The audio version is there as, this full cast experience, which I think is I think, we're going to find people who won't want to pick up the book, who are going to want to listen to that. And I think it really is a matter of giving the thing as much life in as many different avenues as you can, so that it can find audience members where people are looking for it.
So it's just a question of using the internet just to get in front of people.
People want content. I mean, that's the one thing that's why the strikes are happening. It's why everything is insane. Is this insatiable need for content? And I think I'm not sure why that's happening. Maybe it is part of an awakening, which
an
I think
awakening
is a theory
to content
posited on this very show. Or maybe, devouring so much content that you start to see the pattern in things, and you can, write better stories, and maybe live a better life.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy just that everything, content is produced and consumed asynchronously now. Meaning you can put something out and it's just there, and somebody's going to watch it. You don't have to force everyone to be on one programming track.
Yeah. Like that water cooler conversation is kind of a thing of the past now. There are still like the big tentpole things. Everyone's talking about Oppenheimer. I haven't seen it, but everyone's talking about Oppenheimer.
I saw Barbie though. It was great.
Barbie was great.
You like Barbie? Yeah.
I loved Barbie.
Barbie was amazing. It was just solid storytelling.
So, what was her? That was my spirit animal. Is sudden thoughts of death. Barbie.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact wording, but the Barbie that's constantly ruminating on death. That's me.
Yeah,
I totally identify with that Barbie.
Yeah. Barbie was very good.
Did not know, the Mattel's Barbie was going to be a thesis on dying. That was really
and gender relations in the 21st century.
Yeah, that was wild, man.
I was amazed by the fact that at the end of the movie they had to conclude the conclusion of the movie, unless I read it wrong, but the conclusion of the movie was essentially it's impossible for men and women to get along, so we're just going to separate you.
Right.
And like that's the end. That's the message. It's just like we don't know. We're just going to give up.
Yeah, we don't know the answer either.
We're just going to keep you separated.
It was great. I was really surprised. Biggest surprise of the year for sure.
Oh yeah,
in terms of movies.
No. Barbie is one of the all-time classics in my mind already. So speaking of constant ruminating fears of death, and Halloween and Halloween. This is the Halloween episode, so let's talk about spooky stuff. I was going to ask you, what is horror to you? Like, what constitutes horror?
That's a great question.
Because horror is has always been my genre. It's always been my jam. Yeah. It's always what I read. Same. It's what I wanted to write, and it's what I like writing. And it's also metaphysical about the world as it is now. And I like horror because it's about the world here now, just with one thing tweaked, unlike swords and sorcery or science fiction or something like that. Anyways.
Right. Which is more of a dissociative experience.
Just kind of tying it back into the theme of this podcast.
It's that's probably why Hereditary is such a touchstone for me, because of what it's about. Horror is fun, it's sort of like dessert. I feel like it always goes down easy. Like, I'm always in the mood for it. And it's a great reflection of what's going on. I think that's sort of the standard answer. It's true. I think it's cliche because it's true, is if you look at the horror movies of any given decade, it's a great reflection of what was going on at that time. My favorite example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 versus 2, which, 1 was this sort of reaction to the war. So you just get this horrifying carnival of, just shell-shocked people just stuck in this room together going fucking insane. And then I think 12 years later or something, part 2 comes out, and the whole thing's about Reaganomics, and it's about killing yuppies and, amusement parks going out of business and recessions. And it's a completely different movie. And anyone watching, part 1 and part 2 with no information in between is going to be very confused that that this is part of the same franchise. But I think it perfectly reflects what was going on at the time for each of those. And then you watch them now, and it's just torture porn, because that's basically what's happening. Is we're all just getting chainsawed.
You mean horror movies that are coming out now?
No, the new Chainsaw, the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies.
The new one, the ones that are coming out now. Yeah.
It's just been like pure penetration. It's just which makes sense. I mean, that's all that's going on. It's just constant.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like for the past 20 years.
I definitely noticed there was a huge there was a change in horror movies, and it's actually when I stopped watching them after Guantanamo Bay. Because it was after Guantanamo Bay, after those pictures came out, that the first Saw movie came out.
Yeah.
And after that, I think there was some switch that got flipped in people's heads where all of a sudden cruelty and degradation were really interesting.
Right. Yeah. Cruelty and degradation in green fluorescent light. That's
yes, in this case, yes. So
for some reason, that was the aesthetic.
Which is never what I never wanted. I don't like that. I never liked splatter
But I think that's
horror.
A perfect example. Everything post Guantanamo Bay had, there is a movement that emerged post Guantanamo Bay of, just this unrelenting
hostile
torture.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. But, then there's always people who are willing to explore something a little deeper, like Ari Aster. Going back to Hereditary, and Hereditary is the kind of movie that scares me. Torture porn doesn't scare me at this point; it bores me.
Yeah.
And there's snarky horror too. There's the American Horror Story type of horror, which is I don't even know how to explain it. It's it's just Emma Roberts either talking to killers and going boring, yawn, or she is the killer. And then again, she's just saying boring, yawn, but she's stabbing people instead of running from them. It's like there's no that snarky horror thing is its own aesthetic, and it's funny. I mean, I'll watch them, but they're not the ones that stick with me. That's like the Twinkie. It's like I'll eat it. It was delicious, but it wasn't good for me. It wasn't nutritious.
Don't forget my favorite genre on that point: the like mega shark versus mega tornado type.
Right.
Yeah,
There's a new one. There's a great one that stole an idea that I wanted to be the first to do it. But someone made a movie called Bad CGI Sharks, and it's just. Bad CGI sharks are coming and they're like, oh my God, why are these sharks CGI? And I always wanted like that to be an explanation for like why an effect looks shitty, is because, like someone's there and they're like, what the fuck is this? It looks like CGI. I wanted that in a movie. And someone did it, and my hat's off to them.
That's great.
But I like that, they sort of one-upping each other and trying to find that, that hilarious portmanteau, like lavalantula or something.
Is that a real one?
Well, that's a real one.
Wow. Have you seen Velocipaster is a real one?
I have not seen Velocipaster. Yeah. We almost did a Velocipaster novelization. We were this close.
Wow.
Yeah, that one would have been a fun one. Might still happen.
My favorite one in that genre is House Shark, I think is what it's called. Where
House Shark?
Yeah, like people buy a house that is quote unquote haunted by a shark that comes out of the toilets and eats everyone, and so great. They have to find a shaman to exorcise the shark from the house. It's amazing.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I only watch horror movies that Francis Ford Coppola approves of. Before we even started this today, I watched Evil Bong 8. There are literally 8 Evil Bong movies, and I'd only seen the first 7, so I watched part 8 this morning while I was working, and it made me very happy.
Very good.
If anyone is interested in the exploits of a bong that is evil, and when you smoke it will transport you.
I thought you said Evil Dawn, like Red Dawn. Evil Bong.
Nope. There are
Bong. 8 Evil Bong movies.
I was waiting for a reaction.
Wow.
It was because I mumbled my words. Evil Bong.
What percentage of horror movies do you think are watched while high?
A lot of them.
Yeah.
75%, 80%.
Yeah. That seems about right.
You got to be in the right headspace sometimes. That's another reason why they're like.
Have you seen Leprechaun in the Hood?
I've seen every single Leprechaun.
Nice. Movie. Even Leprechaun in Space.
I've seen Leprechaun in Space. It's one of the best ones. I've seen Leprechaun in the Hood. I've seen Leprechaun Back to the Hood. I've seen Leprechaun Origins. There's a new Leprechaun, which I think is called Leprechaun Returns, directed by Steven Kostanski, which is the gentleman that directed this masterpiece here, of which we created the novelization.
Manborg.
Where the leprechaun actually rides a drone and flies it like a hoverboard to kill people.
That's amazing. Absolutely. That's amazing. That's I would be stoked about that. That's great.
So yeah. I will totally wax, about trash horror all day long. There's great. A place for it, man.
Well, I love it. Just to obnoxiously make it highbrow again.
Yes.
So, but I love this idea of, horror reflecting the kind of fears of a culture. So I'm thinking back to, like the 80s with Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, where like all the horror is about like threats to the suburbs. It's like the white bread suburban order is threatened by a monster.
Absolutely.
And now we've got to deal with it and put everything back into place. And there's probably going to be like Bruce Springsteen quotes and Stephen King talking about the boss a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
While wiping his nose every third sentence.
Well, he's publicly admitted that, right? So that's not shit talking.
You watch some of those early King interviews are fascinating because that dude is clearly like up to here on coke.
Is he like going? Is he going full Charles Manson, like spaz out?
Oh yeah. He's I'm out there, man. My words are out there. You can't. That's Charlie. That's not Stevie.
Okay, just checking, because Stephen King is like his Twitter is like the ultimate dad Twitter now.
It really is. It's hilarious.
Yeah,
and his he even had an exclusive Funko Pop made, and it's him and his dog.
That's great.
So it's Stephen King and Molly.
That's great. You gotta love Stephen King. He's like everyone's dad. That's great.
Yeah, Uncle Steve.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's like it kind of like if that's what was the horror in the 80s was threats to the suburbs. Which I'm sure somebody like that whole genre is just waiting for somebody to do like the critical theory race read on it to just like and just to dismantle that that thing. But what are you saying?
Maybe we'll put out the book about that. We do a lot of nonfiction.
You do nonfiction too?
Nonfiction is nonfiction and novelizations are our best sellers, interestingly enough.
Really?
People love the nonfiction.
What do you do nonfiction about?
Our best-selling books are these books by an author named Dustin McNeil, who does gigantic tomes about the making of franchises. So we have Slash of the Titans, which is about the making, the sort of 20-year-long process of trying to make Freddy versus Jason. And the guy literally found every single screenplay that was commissioned from every single screenwriter in Hollywood who was, hot at that moment that pitched Freddy versus Jason to New Line Cinema. And he does a breakdown of every single version of that script, what this one did. And then he interviews the person that wrote it. Fascinating. And then there's another one. There's a series called Taking Shape 1 and 2, which the first one is the making of every single Halloween movie. And then Taking Shape 2 is a making of every Halloween sequel that didn't happen.
Nice.
Which is super
That's
fascinating.
Cool. Yeah, so much stuff that you're putting out.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I definitely am steeped in horror all the time.
So, yeah, I mean, I was going to ask. So, if you're, all this new horror that you're putting out or that you're getting submitted, like, what are the themes that you're seeing? I mean, what is, if we kind of take this idea that horror reflects, people's anxieties or cultural anxieties, what are you seeing?
Right now, it's a lot of revenge.
All right. Revenge, eh? Let's hear more about this.
You know what? I kind of understand. I kind of get it.
Yeah. Let's hear more.
So, I've heard pitches and stories about it. I mean, it always ends in revenge. Like one was, it was like this fight club, this post-apocalyptic fight club kind of thing where this girl infiltrated the club, but it was really just to get back at the club promoter who ended up killing her dad. A lot of it's environmental horror and, stopping the big mega corporation that's fucking up the planet. It's a lot of the people in power are fucking us over and we're going to hurt them. Okay. And it's like, I wonder why people are writing about that.
So at this point, it's just like straight revenge fantasy, wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But but overtly politicized.
Yeah. Always with some, literally, literally one of the villains in one of the stories I heard was the villain was named President Prompt.
Prompt. Yeah. See, this is what I was talking about earlier. I was like, I'm afraid that this is what, yeah.
And I was like, I see what you're doing there. I don't think it's for us.
Yeah. Is any of this stuff good? I mean, or is it just kind of like just straight?
No, absolutely. Yeah, there's one right now. I mean, I don't even know. I'm trying so the book we just put out, where we're just about to put out is called The Part Mart. and it's a fake children's book, fully illustrated and everything. And it's about a little girl who, and this was pitched to me, and I absolutely fell in love with it because it was like David Cronenberg for kids. It's about a little girl who, or like a teenage girl, I guess, who keeps seeing all these influencers that have, parts that she wants. She wants different nose. She wants different hands. She wants, better knees. Whatever.
I see where this is going.
And she keeps going to the part mart to get an upgrade. And so they'll take off a knee and they'll put it in a jar and they'll give her a new knee. And by the end of the book, there's a part. She's like a Frankenstein. There's a thing out there that is not her. Not a single part of her is her anymore. And she's sitting on a shelf watching, even her head in a jar, watching her body out there doing all these things. And she's like, that was neat and all, but I kind of just wish I was still me. And I thought that one was really cool.
That's good.
And I thought that was a good reflection of what's going on as well.
I like that.
That was
right? That's really good. That's really good. That's also very disturbing because I feel like that could actually happen.
Absolutely.
And that people would go for it,
right. If that technology came to pass, people would absolutely
100%. 100%. Yeah. Yeah, that's really scary. So
yeah, we say yes to the ones that tickle our scary bone.
Interesting. Well, it's like kind of like the golden age of horror, at least for people our age. Kind of like the 80s, Stephen King, Clive Barker. The golden age of mass market paperback horror. And that was when the world was under the threat of mutually assured destruction with nuclear weapons, for sure. And which is kind of coming back now. So I don't know. It's like, do you think horror?
It's all the rage again.
Oh yeah. Do you think that horror thrives when the world is more or less horrifying? Like, because the other times, because I also think about
when
the 90s.
When is the world not horrifying?
Well, like, for instance, here's a counterexample. It's like I think about the 90s when things were pretty good. There was there was the Balkans conflict. There was stuff going on. But and then people loved like ultra edgelord, the edgiest horror you could possibly get in the 90s. Like, it was just like the edgelord decade. So,
That's fantastic. I never thought of that. Because like you sort of whatever there's the way we all operate on a mass scale is to sort of, wherever there's a dearth of something, we'll try to fill that, right? So when you said 90s, like the first thing I thought of was Scream, because everything was sort of happy-go-lucky-ish. Kevin Williamson, had the time to sort of.
Oh, that was late 90s, though. I consider Scream to be like Y2K culture.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I agree. I totally agree.
That's like Backstreet Boys era. Yeah.
Grandfather, it's the granddaddy of that snarky horror we were talking about.
Yes.
And I think that emerged from maybe, having a less terrifying time to think about familial mental illness, sort of destroying your psyche.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It's just like, damn, it's just like, that's the thing. That's the thing about when I watch Hereditary. It's like, this is great, but like, I got enough problems in my life. Okay. Like, I don't need you like adding to the stack. And I feel like that's probably the case now.
It's just like, I don't think about this. I journal, like, what?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I just need to walk outside or turn on the news. Like, I feel like now people would be, or probably not running to the theaters to be like, get like Ingmar Bergman level psychological trauma from their films.
There is the escapism factor,
Yeah.
So I think, there's always going to be a desire to escape from something. And if there isn't, then, I think maybe you do get something of a fluffier nature. But then it's more, but horror comedy has its place too. Maybe that's the answer is, in lighter times, you get more horror comedy. Maybe that's the inner reflection.
Well, that would be interesting to trace back. I mean, like, because is it Grand Guignol? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Guignol or Guignol. I say guignon.
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 Cajun. I mean, that's kind of like the genesis of horror comedy, right? And that was happening, what, in Victorian era? Or was it all throughout the 19th century?
Yeah, very much so. That's that's the OG horror camp,
Yeah. So do we consider the Victorian era like good times for people or not? I mean, I don't know. I mean, by their standard, maybe it was.
I mean, by its definition, wasn't it more? It was prim, it was proper, everything. But there were always undercurrents. Women sure didn't have it great. There's always going to be someone in any given era that is getting the most shat upon, I guess. So I think there are always avenues. I mean, we've talked about so many different kinds of horror, just that are out right now. I mean, you're talking about toilet ghost sharks, and I'm talking about bongs that take you to another dimension and kill you. In the same conversation as the most traumatizing horror films you can imagine. So I think it's just a matter of finding it, looking for it where you might be able to find it, and seeing what speaks to you. And if there isn't anything that is that's telling the stories that are resonating with you, then maybe you're the one that starts to tell those stories.
Yeah, that's well put. So is there like a really active kind of scene on the internet of people reading and writing fantastic literature, or whatever we want to call it?
Always. What's the big one right now? I'm not all up on the internet. I have,
but didn't you say you played the internet?
I do. Yeah. I played the internet. Yeah,
but you're all up on it.
And I did not go method. I did not research what it was like to be the internet, to play the internet.
Or to be on the internet.
Or to be on the internet. I mean, I have pretty severe social anxiety. Social networks like freak me out.
Wow, you have social anxiety even on social media?
Especially on social media.
Wow.
I have social network anxiety.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I feel so much more naked on social media than if I was standing naked in the middle of La Cienega. It just doesn't feel safe. It feels violent and angry, and I've had enough negative experiences on social media to make me never want to go there again. And I'll venture out there sometimes, and I always like come back feeling like fucking James Franco in 127 hours. I'm just like, I've left parts of me behind. I don't know where I am anymore. I'm hungry and I'm scared. I don't like it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's all the harassment. Maybe that might be a part of it. But it just, I think a big part of it is probably the same reason that Hereditary speaks to me so much, is because my mind is my own worst enemy. And if I don't keep it reined in, it will just fucking take control. It'll run off without me and leave me far behind. And then it'll take me a long time to get it back.
Yeah, I think that's why that movie was one of the reasons that movie was so unsettling for people.
Yeah, and why it was so divisive, I think, because if that doesn't resonate with you, it's not going to make any sense at all.
Yeah.
But if it resonates with you even a tiny bit, like it is dread from start to finish. It is pure, creeping, awful dread that makes you want to leave and take a shower.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't. Social media is horror. The mind is horror. I like monsters, fake monsters and shit aren't scary. What people do to each other and how they treat each other when they feel they have anonymity is fucking scary.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is really scary. And that kind of brings up another question. I often hear people say this, maybe you get people saying something like this to you. the world is so crazy now. It's so out of hand. It's so absurd and diluted that writing fiction is pointless. Like, why would you write? Like, you just look at the headlines and just like the level of insanity that's occurring in the world. It's just like, there's no point. And like science fiction, speculative, like forget it. And if it's like some type of speculative thing, forget it. Cause it's the future changes every 24 hours.
Like good luck keeping up with it. It's like a car, like you drive it off the lot and it's already devalued. The second
exactly.
You finish your story.
That's how I feel about science fiction. Like if somebody's writing hard science fiction, it's like, well, good luck, because everything's going to be obsolete by the time it's published. So, anyways,
it's tough. It's really, really tough. That's a great point. It's one of the things that prevents me from writing more. And it's why I like nonfiction and archiving so much, is because in such a throwaway society, I'm very happy to preserve things that are just going to get forgotten to time.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I've been buying books like crazy, archiving stuff. It's at any point the internet can just be shut off, and then all these that's all gone. And then you just got to, look for people's hard drives, whatever people manage to save off the internet, but even that. So anyways.
That's wild, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had questions.
Oh boy. Okay.
I don't know what your next question was going to be.
I'm not sure, actually. Go.
Did you prepare a list? Were you that prepared?
I was unprepared for your presence, Mark. It is overwhelming now that it is.
I hope
I've been graced with it.
I hope it hasn't been too daunting sitting here talking with me.
Always, it's actually quite intimidating.
That's the first time I've ever heard that. I don't like anyone that has ever met me has never used that word.
It's just because they're too intimidated to tell you.
Oh, I never thought of it that way. I'm intimidating them to the point that they could never fully be honest with me. But now that we're safe, now that you're in Texas,
now that I'm on Zoom,
and
I can't now that you can't reach through the screen and savagely beat me across the head,
which I was known to do.
Which I've seen you do it a few times. Yeah, just like randomly.
Every time we got together, it was just something about you. The fist started talking,
Well, it wasn't just that. I mean, it was random passerby, it was like old women walking their schnauzers, if that's a dog.
Just something about you.
Shih Tzus. And you would just go up and fists would start flying. You would let them know that something about their presence was not acceptable to you.
Yeah. I don't know what it was. Which is another reason. It's one reason.
Neither did they. They were just left bleeding and questioning.
Yeah. That's why I stay home now. Is because, it's
for society's protection.
I'm a loaded weapon. And I'll just go out and hurt people, man.
Is it true that you had to register your fists as lethal weapons, and that if you assault somebody with them, it's a felony automatically?
I got kicked out of Disneyland one time for bringing in these guns, baby.
Yeah. I'm sure that's why you got kicked out of Disneyland. Something tells me there's more to this story.
There was I go to Disneyland. I have a Disneyland pass. That's what's more to the story.
You didn't get kicked out of Disneyland.
I never got kicked out of Disneyland.
Okay.
And I've only beat up like 3 or 4 old ladies.
Well, I commend you on your self-control then.
Drifters.
You said you were gonna ask me something.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about beating more drifters?
We can do that too. We can talk about lighting the homeless on fire.
A favorite past. I mean, I think that's what we first bonded over.
I'm sorry.
Right?
I'm sorry. I should not have said that on the air. That was inappropriate and hurtful of me. I should have said lighting the unhoused on fire.
The unhoused. I was going to say. I was triggered just now, actually, by your poor choice of words. I want to know: did you reset your system from sympathetic to parasympathetic in preparation for this Zoom call,
for this interview?
Yeah.
Yes, I did actually.
Me
but
too.
Very, very good. But that's just because that's just how I ride.
Right. It's the only way to go. When would you say, I want to talk about awakening? I know it's not a Halloween topic.
Whoa, plot twist.
What?
But yeah,
we can keep it on brand. M. Night Shyamalan plot twist, hour 17 minutes in.
Well, look, if you want to talk about that, we got to start with the first steps first, and that's a free personality test.
Do you have e-meters?
Oh, we have e-meters, but
you got to take the test. E-meters? Can I grab the? You can
put your hands on the screen. Is that the kind of awakening you were talking about?
That's not what I was talking about, but I do want to hear how your journey across the bridge is progressing.
The bridge to total freedom.
The bridge to total freedom, absolutely.
Pretty good. I don't have a yacht though, which I'm disappointed about, and I'm working on that. There will be an ultraculture yacht at some point where people can come party,
and you can just bring a bunch of little boys on it, and
no.
I don't want to go on your yacht.
Yeah, I'll leave. There's some things I'll leave to L. Ron Hubbard.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah,
he was crazy. Your own path.
Yeah, I mean, he was the kind of guy to do that. I mean, like he was on that yacht, and he convinced everyone that they were sailing around looking for buried treasure that he'd hidden in a past life when he was a pirate. And people who went on that yacht said there were more drugs on that ship than anything they'd ever seen in the music industry in Los Angeles in the 1960s.
Yeah, and they're like,
can you imagine?
A lot of drugs.
It's like, yeah, and it's like, can you imagine?
That's amazing. Did you ever read Chaos?
The math book?
No, the Charles Manson CIA LSD cover-up book.
Oh no.
It's amazing. Just the thing you said about being on the boat with more drugs than you've ever seen in your life was a sparked a memory. I think you would like it. I think it might intrigue you. It's a fascinating story that's sort of and there's no conclusion. It's just this guy follows the threads. He's given a prompt to write a story for, I think, Vanity Fair or something. No, Movie Line magazine about the 20th anniversary of the Tate killings, and he cannot finish the article, and he just keeps extending the deadline, doing more research. Every interview he does leads him somewhere else, to another person that says, "Oh, have you talked to so-and-so?" To the point that the magazine has long been out of business, and he hasn't written anything else. He's still researching the murders, and at a certain point, he just says, "I had to call it. I had to stop researching, and I just realized I was never going to get an answer." And I was never going to come to any sort of conclusion, but it's more threads than anybody has ever pulled at in regards to the Manson case, and it's fucking fascinating.
Interesting. So, what did you walk away from that concluding, like in terms of who did what?
I'd say the closest thing that I came away with to a thesis is that the CIA opened up a testing facility in the heyday of Haight-Ashbury to create sleeper cells to stop the free love movement, and the killings were that seminal moment that ended that sort of the era of peace and love.
And that was intentionally done. I mean, I'll buy that. That's what I would do if I was an evil CIA motherfucker.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the thing about Manson that people don't, I mean, there's so much misinformation about that case, and people just don't know about it unless you listen to like Ministry albums in the 80s, in which case you know a whole lot about it. Just like a certain type of person. But the thing about Charles Manson is he was like a career prisoner.
Yeah.
Like he went to jail at the age of 15 or something like that for shoplifting fruit, and was just getting like like raped in prison from the age of 15 and put on work gangs. And like he was in and out of prison his entire life. And the Charles Manson that people know is just his antics when they let him out for like a couple of years.
Yeah, exactly.
So like they just dropped him off and he was ready to go because he was like, he'd grown up in the prison system.
Yeah.
And then he was only ever out of the prison system briefly enough to do the, Tate LaBianca murders, which he did not do, which people also think he did.
Right.
But
which people don't understand. But there's so much stuff about Manson's parole officer that is really highly questionable.
What's that about?
That he was, how many people had their sort of hands in his pockets and vice versa. And one of those organizations was the clinic in Haight-Ashbury that was doling out LSD to the hippies and doing these weird experiments. And that's the only reason Manson ended up there is because of his parole officer. Really fascinating.
Interesting. Interesting. How odd.
Super fucking fascinating.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, like the thing about the Charles Manson case is it's so like iconic. It's so like charged with, it's so mythologically charged. It's so like involved in the kind of like shadow mythology of America that it's almost like the facts of the case don't actually matter. Yeah. It's more like whatever, like the vibe that came off of that.
Yeah.
I will say
the mythology at this point.
Yeah, particularly, and you can feel it if you live in LA. Did I tell you I almost moved in right next to Spawn Ranch?
No way.
Yeah, wow. This is a fuck story. It's near Thousand Oaks. It's in West Hills, and I was gonna move nearby during the pandemic, but then it turned out to be a nuclear dumping ground, and that is part of why I left California because I was just like, this is not happening.
I don't think this is a good place to be. But yeah, a buddy of mine is he's kind of like a Forrest Gump character in that he is always in places where significant things are happening, despite not being he's not like a psychonaut or anything. He's not a guy that explores different aspects of consciousness in the world. He just happens to find himself in these strange situations. For example, he was one of the head team members of the Titan exploration vessel, and he was emailing me, a couple months before all that went down. Yeah, we've been doing all these dives, going down to the Titanic, and I was like blown away. And then that thing happened, and I emailed him right away, and I was like, "What the hell? Are you okay? Were you on there?" Luckily, he got sick that day, so he didn't go on it. But he also he does a lot of reality TV, for lack of a better word, and because of that, one day he got to go interview Manson, and he was given all these like restrictions. You can't tell anybody about it. No one will know about it. Manson won't even know about it until the day. Like, we don't tell him anything because he has like this network of people. That he can communicate through the prison system. So we keep all this information hidden from him. And so it was this big to do. They had to keep secret, and they were, and don't tell him anything. Don't give him any personal information. He'll use it against you. All these rules that they gave him. So he goes to the prison. It's like finally time. And he goes and they do the search and all that. And they make sure that he has nothing on him that Manson can use as a weapon, and he finally gets to the door, and the slot opens, and Manson goes, "Hey Jude, nice to meet you." He knew the guy's name.
Oh, Jesus!
About him. It was fucking crazy.
That's terrifying. That's terrifying.
Yeah. So there was one prison guard that was like in charge of making sure, Manson didn't know the information and he was in Manson's pocket.
That was a really spot on Manson impression. It scared me actually a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to. My Manson impression is based on I think, is it Bob Odenkirk's Manson impression?
Okay.
On the Ben Stiller show.
Okay. So what happened then? I mean, did he have anything else to say about him?
No, I mean, they just did a regular old interview. He said it wasn't anything outrageously terrifying, and Manson never harassed him or sent anyone after his family or anything. So in that way, he was actually, a kinder person than the Church of Scientology.
Although he was in Scientology briefly.
Was he? I don't remember.
He took courses on Scientology in prison before all that happened. Wow. And that's part of what gave him his cult leader abilities, studying Scientology. Yep, he got it from them.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah, and he was connected with the process. He was connected with the process, I believe, also briefly, but I could have that wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, I will say, like, I read it's not like his autobiography, but there's a book that's called like Charles Manson in his own words that was like interviews with him in prison. That is the only book that I have had to put, as far as I can think of, that's the only book that I've had to put down and just stop reading completely, because it was like it felt like it was making me mentally ill. And like, not like, like I've read some fucked up shit, as you might imagine.
Yeah, sure.
So, like whatever, like Dennis Cooper, Marquis de Sade, whatever, like
George Bataille, who cares?
Right. And it wasn't because of the content. It wasn't because of any specific content. It was just being in that mind space for so long.
That's wild, man. And this is coming from a guy that's read Dianetics.
Dianetics is pretty good. It's like, that part in Repo Man where like the older Repo Man is like, you got to get that copy of Dianetics. You better read that. You got to get that knowledge in your head. Dianetics is pretty good, actually. It's not that crazy.
It's a good read. It's a solid read.
Yeah. Volcano. So did I answer your question about awakening and the bridge to total freedom?
No, we didn't even get into it. We went on a Manson a tangent, and then we jokingly we got into the bridge. But I want to know if you're ascending the ladder.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely.
That one's my favorite. That's my favorite piece of mythology.
I am. Yes.
When did the process begin? That's what I want to know. Were you awakening?
The process church?
No, good God, the awakening process, sir.
What are you talking about?
Are you
talking about New Age shit?
Yes, I'm talking about New Age bullshit.
Okay, what?
What I mean, you hear your channel it talks about kundalini. Your channel talks about different, satsanas.
Sir, I run an auto repair and car parts YouTube channel.
Oh, my bad.
I believe you're in the wrong place.
I'm talking to the wrong. It's like the Conan O'Brien joke. It's one of my favorites. Is because he's Harvard. He's a Harvard guy through and through. He wrote for the Lampoon. His humor is very Harvard. But he packages in a way that's pleasing to a certain demographic. And when people come on the show and try to, I've seen people try to school him. They're like, "Come on, don't play dumb. You're from Harvard." His go-to is always, "No, Harvard driving school." It's the wrong Harvard.
Very good.
That's great. I repaired tires. I don't know what you're talking about. No, that interview with Jessa was fascinating, man. And you were alluding to things that you've seen. And
you're gonna have to remind me. You're gonna have to remind me, because that's like 100 episodes back or something.
Was that 100 episodes back?
Yeah.
So we're one of the things that struck me was your shift in thinking about a life in a linear capacity versus as a pool of water where the drop goes in and a new drop comes out.
Okay.
I thought that was really interesting, and I'd never heard that visual before. And I want to know when that process began. Like, what brought you to moments of looking at things that way? Were you already there when we were talking back in the day?
Oh yeah,
I know you were.
Yeah.
You were,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Before I moved to Los Angeles.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I had, Jesus, if you really want, okay. I
don't mean to derail the show.
I got to switch hats now. I started spiritual training at 16, 17.
Really?
probably and entered completion stages around the age of 26. So, and that's when I was in New York.
And was this on your own? Were people like forcing this on you? or was this out of curiosity? Like I'm because I grew up very much in a cult system.
You did?
I graduated from a super conservative Christian high school that was, very much like I had to sign purity contracts, like really, really weird shit.
Where was this?
And it was in Downey, California.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So are they like this? Wow. So do you still have to hide from them?
I mean, I'm Facebook friends with a lot of them still, but I don't talk to any of my, I talk to one friend from high school still. And, we'll occasionally like a post or something, but I don't like, there was a high school reunion recently and I didn't know how to go there. I didn't know what to do. And I didn't know what, we would even talk about.
So was this just kind of like a straight Orange County American Christian cult?
Very much so. Super duper.
Joel Osteen.
Very much Joel Osteen. Joyce Meyer, Greg Laurie, Harvest Crusade. Was it upbringing?
Was it apocalyptic or more like prosperity gospel type?
Apocalyptic for sure. The end times are coming probably in our lifetime. Get ready for it. You need to prepare for kingdom living. You need to prepare to be chosen and set apart from the people who are going to come for you when the tribulation happens. And don't accept the mark of the beast because it's coming. All that stuff. And it took me a long time to sort of detox from all of it, and the arc is sort of, so I was devout for a while. I was even training to be a college youth pastor.
You do kind of have college youth pastor vibes. That's funny. You're so clean cut. I knew there was some. It's like, wow, why is he so smiley and clean cut? Either he's a serial killer or he's an agent. It's just like what?
Right, yeah. And now I was. I'm a recovering born again Christian.
Right.
So it was really interesting to come out of that, and oddly enough, Clive is the one that sort of helped me understand looking at things through a different prism.
Do you want to talk about Clive Barker? I mean, you brought him up a few times. I wasn't going to bring him up if you didn't want to, and we don't have to.
I mean, I'm happy to talk about Clive. It's
just to put some context on that.
It's a fascinating chapter. So I met Clive, I think 2007, 2008, and I started working with him as an intern, and it started as a mentorship. I introduced myself. And we hit it off, and he invited me to do a mentorship with him, and it was like a dream come true. And during that time, I learned like more about myself and I think the world and spirituality and being a writer in those first 6 months than I did, I think I was like 27 at the time, in the first 27 years of my life. And it was just blew the doors off my brain. But being such a good mark for cults, he sucked me right into his cult.
Ah, I see. Yes. Yes.
And it's just this, it's like this motif I keep returning to of like finding the charismatic leader, falling for it, and then, and then just getting burned again. Which is why now I just hide in this room and put books out, because then I can be the charismatic leader that fucks people. That's my goal. That was the long con.
You just wanted to be the boss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't want people to tell me what to do anymore. I didn't.
Basically, that's it.
There are so many, but the Clive chapter is so storied and fascinating, and very traumatic as well.
Why traumatic?
He, I mean, it's
Don't get me sued for libel, by the way. But outside of that,
no, and that's why I'm that's why I'm choosing my words carefully. Okay. It's also why, I did a nervous system reset before the podcast. Is I try to leave ego at the door when I do these things. I'm sure you're familiar with the podcast hangover. You close the laptop and you're just like, fuck. Why did I say any of those things I said?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
What did I do?
Yeah, that always happens, but then it goes away. I think everyone feels that, but then you just kind of calm down about it because it's just like you'll have images flash through your mind. It's just like, I'm gonna get canceled. Oh, gee, what did I say? Somebody's gonna take it like this, and then they're gonna say that, and they're gonna this that.
Lord help
me. No, it's that's like normal. It's like stage fright. It's the same thing, I think.
Yeah, very much so. And as we've established, I don't do well with social media. But it was, he was great, and he was perfect for that time in my life until he wasn't, and I don't know when to move on. I'm not good with confrontation, and I don't know when to call it a day and say, this has run its course. Maybe we should do something else. And I think I stayed longer than I should have up on the hill, up on the house on Haunted Hill, because I think at the end of the day, I was just staying for the stories, after a while, because
now you're going to have to share some stories now that you said that.
I mean, they were like, first of all, the place was haunted as shit. Like that's one aspect of it. And stuff up there would mess with people in a big way. There was one time, and I've told this story on like 10 podcasts now, but it never gets old. Is there was one time I was holding down the fort. He went abroad for some, I think he was at Sitges for a film festival, and he was like the guest of honor. And I stayed back at the office which was, 3 houses that he had purchased in Beverly Hills, side by side that he put a wall around. And one house was the office house, and one house stored paintings, and the middle house was the house he lived in, which was subsiding. Completely unrelated, but we would say, it was the devil coming. It was Old Scratch coming to reclaim him after the deal they'd made. That was the inside joke.
Okay.
I see you shaking your head. Is that a bridge too far?
No, not at all. But wait, what did he say was Old Scratch?
That we would say. I would like the.
Oh, you would say that. Okay.
The employees there would say it was Old Scratch reclaiming the house, because he had made a deal with Clive.
I see. Okay.
So, they're in Spain, and Clive had this table that was like the Sons of Anarchy table. It was like 30 feet long. It was like a table from Game of Thrones. That he wrote on, that he drew on. He did everything on this table. And it weighed like 5,000 pounds, couldn't move it. And so then it just like paint and blood and like any substance you could imagine was on this table. And so
so no one was using this for him, but him?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And it was like a banquet table?
It was yes.
All to himself. Wow. Okay.
All to himself. Yeah.
Very good. A lot of real estate.
And so, and it was always just covered, in shit and manuscripts and illustrations and DVDs and televisions. And so he needed to have it resurfaced because it was just like it looked like an impasto painting at this point, right? Just paint this thick was on it, and he couldn't write on it anymore. He couldn't draw on it because there was just so much gunk. So he had some like foremen come in and sand it down and resurface the entire table. And the table was so big that, I went in to check on how the job was going. And they had sanded it, and the entire room was covered in sawdust. And, they had the plastic drapes up and stuff to protect some of the things. And he had, and all over the room were touch lamps. Every corner of the room was another touch lamp, because he would be walking through the room, and he had this on and moving through the tables in this vast landscape of touch lamps. And I walk in, and I'm like, wow, look at this banquet table. It's gorgeous. It's like flat. I've never seen. Everything's covered in like 2 inches of sawdust. And in the corner of my eye, one of the touch lamps goes on. And I'm like, faulty lighting in these, old Beverly Hills mansions. And I walk over, and there are 2 fingerprint depressions in the sawdust.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okie dokie. But I mean, stuff like that happened all the time. Drawers would open. We had a guy that was staying the night there once when some of the paintings were in boxes. They had just come back from like a Century Guild exhibition. And he said a figure came into the room. He thought it was one of Clive's boyfriends because it was this sort of tall, slender figure with a bald head in the shadow. And when he turned the light on, it was a tall, slender figure with a bald head that had its facial features were swimming around on its face. And in that very room in which that man was sleeping was that exact painting of a tall, slender, bald man with facial features swimming around on his face. So stuff like that would happen constantly.
So what are you, I mean, you mentioned your upbringing, but are you a metaphysically inclined person, or what did you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I bought it. I totally, like, the energy up there was weird. I saw like at least 3 people go, like, if not either, completely like in need for a 5150 to full blown schizophrenic, just
Whoa.
from spending too much time up there. It's an unfriendly place. It's really the energy up there, and this is part of why I wanted to sort of get into this stuff with you, is because you might be able to answer some of these questions. Like, there are things I've intuited that I didn't know were things. Like, I only recently discovered that I found out I was doing trauma release exercise work. And it was just something I kind of wormed my way into on accident because I got into a car accident, and started doing this thing, and through researching found out I was doing, TRE. But I'm sure there are things up there on that hill that I could describe to you, and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's the such and such phenomena. We know we're quite familiar." Or that's one of Paymon's lackeys. I don't know what.
Well, what was your question? I mean,
well, I just wanted to get it, at least onto the subject, because I thought you might have some interesting things. But according to legend, someone gave him a portal, which was an opening to a creative force. And he was not supposed to open the portal, but he opened the portal. They gave him a portal, but it was in a sealed box, and it was supposed to help him harness creative energy. And according to mythology, he opened that portal, and ever since then, nothing has been the same.
Isn't this just the plot to Hellraiser?
Which is weird, because a lot of his books, a lot of the plots and characters in his books are things that he ended up doing. There's a character in the Damnation game who's a rich old guy who lives in seclusion in his decaying mansion. And,
oh yeah, that's right. Forgot about
and
that.
And because he made a deal with the devil long ago to have lots of riches. So that's there. There's a guy in Hellraiser who went in search of such pleasures that he sort of tore a hole into his soul. An argument could be made. There's a book about a guy who, a celebrity who lives off of Coldwater Canyon, and unleashed a portal because of a large canvas in his basement that commingled with ghosts and created these weird, ghost animal hybrids in the on the grounds of this haunted mansion. And the whole book is about, like celebrities getting involved in like crazy sex magic and unleashing things that they weren't ready for. It's really interesting, if you look at his work and examine the parallels in life. And what's really fascinating is the energy up there is very, very charming at first. It is very seductive, and it will lure you in with its promise of inspiration, which it gives you in droves. But there is a toll. There is a price to be paid for accessing that energy.
Yeah, I really liked it when I visited. I think I visited a couple times. Yeah, it was really nice.
Absolutely there. But the longer you stay, the darker it gets.
But yeah, like I don't have any sense of wanting or needing anything of that type, and so it's just kind of like, well, I mean, and I'm just like, I don't want to talk to the entity. Like, I got enough shit on my plate as it is.
I don't need more entities. I'm good.
Yeah. So what is this? Somebody gave him a box with a portal in it. Like, what is, in real world terms, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means.
Where did you hear this? Where did you said like, this is the lore says.
I cannot reveal my source.
Was this on Reddit? I mean, like, where?
No. This is from in the inner circle.
Oh, really?
People that have a history there told me that they were there when it was gifted to him.
Wait, so what is this, and who gave it to him?
I don't know who gave it to him, but it was a someone steeped in magic that gave him this object that was supposed to serve, as a useful tool, but it was misused, and cannot be put back in the box. Okay. And I've heard it described. Clive himself has told me, now he's sort of, I don't know how much he's creating these days, but he has described it as a feeling of, something has him by the scruff of the neck and is forcing him to create. Like at this juncture, it is beyond his, sort of desire to create things. It's just compulsory.
Yeah. I don't see why not. I mean, but the question is, well, what's your question about it specifically?
I don't have a question about that, because I think the Clive tangent was, I don't remember how we got on it. I was telling you Clive, I mentioned him, and then you said, should we talk about Clive? But I don't remember what we were talking about before that. Do you?
I don't either. It's just like, how did you live in a place like that? Like, how? I
don't know, man.
I mean, even if he's famous, I mean, it's like, come on. That's like Sunset Boulevard, but worse.
It is. Way really worse. And you know what's wild is one time I was, people kept telling me, it's like you're in Sunset Boulevard, and I had never seen it.
Oh,
so one day I had the day off, and I just like, I got to finally watch Sunset Boulevard and see what all this is about. And as I'm watching it on my phone. As I'm watching it, I start getting texts from him that are like, "You fucked everything up," and it was just, like, no, how is this happening simultaneously?
Wow,
it was wild.
There's your confirmation.
Yeah, it really.
Yeah, Sunset Boulevard. That's like obligatory viewing. Everyone who moves to LA, particularly specifically if they're moving there to get into Hollywood, needs to see that movie upon entry.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who've ended up in situations like that. They get wrapped up into
either as the Norma Desmond or working with Norma Desmond.
Yeah,
like it's one of those just truisms. I think that's why that movie holds up the way it does.
Yeah,
because it's just based on such a psychological truth.
There's so many people who, I guess particularly for young people, it's so easy to get starry-eyed about someone who's like, there's such a power imbalance, and oh my god, they're like they're a star, now I'm going to be a star by,
That's
interacting
where we
with
were.
them.
You nailed it. We were at that sort of that imbalance of power, the charismatic leader, and how I got sucked into that. And Clive did share a lot of stuff that really changed my life, and set me on a path that I thought was going to turn out differently. But I'm not sure if it was the energy up there, or what part of it. There's that Neil Brennan, stand-up comedian, has this line in his newest special, which is all about mental illness and betrayal and all this crazy stuff. And he has this amazing line where he talks about being watching a relationship dissolve and not being certain if the last however many years or months you spent with that person was real or a grift. And that's terrifying. Like that's one of the scariest experiences for me. And looking back, I can't answer the question.
That's real. Yeah.
And I just I fall for that again and again. That's kind of my Achilles heel. So that's the main reason I stay inside.
I see. I think we may share that in common. I have some of that going on too. For sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sucks, man. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, I know. But
so the question was, it's because I was giving you context for my curiosity about your spiritual upbringing, because mine is very rooted in in just hardcore cult mentality.
So interesting. So I didn't grow up religious at all. I mean, I grew up in San Diego, and my family was nominally Christian. We went to church maybe half a dozen times growing up, if that. And but if questions were asked, it was Christian. The Bible was around the house, but it wasn't really a thing. It was just there. And so I don't know, my upbringing was basically snarky ass liberal humanist.
Right, typical Southern California.
I'm sure you can't tell.
I would have never guessed.
Yes. So, so all this stuff was like a science experiment for me. Okay. I actually grew up hating this stuff. I thought I would go to the bookstore and look at all these cheesy ass new age paperbacks and just be like, oh, these imbeciles, how can you take this seriously? Oh my God. The quality of public education has really fallen off. And I was 14.
Right. Of course, because you knew everything.
Right. Well, I did. I did. Yeah. Just don't grow up. Don't age past 14 and you'll be fine.
Right. You'll always know everything.
Exactly. I'm certain that some people have told that joke before, but I've
never heard it. It's great.
Yeah. Well, if you were 14, you would have heard it, as you would know everything.
I did. I remember knowing everything.
It's almost as good. But yeah, this stuff was a science experiment for me. I just wanted to test it out. And, it's a long, complicated story, but, this stuff is all over, dark fantasy literature, horror literature. It's you can't, if you grow up reading that stuff, about it. Yeah. You might know a lot about it. So it's particularly for a teenager, it's very tempting to be well, what if, and it turns out there is a what if. So
there are quite a few what if.
Yeah. So that was kind of, but then in terms of cults and things like that, I've joined a lot of cults. I've left a lot of cults too. My whole thing is pirating. I'll go in, learn everything that I can, and then jet before they give me a job. Never accept never accept a job
before the cyanide gets passed around.
Yeah. So, and I've had lots of mentors and teachers and, all of that, but is that what you were asking?
Yeah. But what was the first thing that sort of sparked and you went, oh, I think I'm going to go this way?
The I Ching.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Playing with the I Ching, or not playing, it's the wrong word, but consulting the I Ching was enough that, it was enough that it was just what the hell? I had to admit that something was up there. It was giving me answers that were so specific. It was I was talking to a person. had listened to what I was actually saying, and I'm just
no
like, what
way.
the hell? Yeah, and so. And when you're dealing with the I Ching's the oldest book in the world, so it's kind of hard to write off.
Right. That old thing. Right. It has withstood the test of time.
So I recommend the I Ching to everyone. I mean, it's free online. You can get the Wilhelm. Wow. The Wilhelm translation is the best. Richard Wilhelm I Ching translation. You can easily get it used. You can get it free online.
Amazing.
It's worth spending some time with.
Yeah. And because we've never, we've our conversations have been rife with snark, but yes. Then also getting into fringe stuff like psychic TV and Order of the Werewolf and all that fun stuff that we bonded over. But we never talked about the sort of the lighter side of things. And in that conversation with Jessa, you mentioned Taoism and these other things that completely surprised me. Okay. And I have only recently discovered the way, and it has been revolutionary. It's been wild.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I think I'm not sure. I guess it's an accumulation of traumas that sort of led me to. I've always been an investigator. I've always been interested in, and part of that, Clive was a big aspect of that, where I was. People don't generally move from being a college youth pastor to working for Clive Barker. It's not a standard trajectory.
And now you will be a college youth pastor in hell.
See, this just writes itself, man.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying story.
Yeah, same resume, same ability, same skills, same background.
Yeah,
new employer.
Same literature, even, and he told me a lot about esoteric stuff and magic with a K, and even got me into Gnosticism, which kept me going for a while. But then when I left and I started the company, I was just sort of left to my own devices and had to start figuring stuff out of myself and working through the traumas of that experience. And I think something wanted me to move a little faster. And like 2 years ago, I think it was 2021, just like everything started falling apart. My body was falling apart. I was bedridden. I was in casts. I was in like 2 full-arm casts. I had to sleep in every night. I lost the use of my hands. I got into a car accident. I sprained my wrist, my shoulder. Everything couldn't work. I was diagnosed with Meniere's disease.
What is that?
It's a pesky, incurable ailment that leads to drop attacks, nausea, insanely loud screeching in one or both ears. Mine was exclusively in the right ear. Feels like your ear is constantly filled with like cement or something that you can't dig out. And like there's a jet engine going off in my head like 24/7.
That's awful.
Crazy dizziness, like you can't even get out of bed, or you just throw up all over the place. That was my 2021. And I like my grandma died. I got food poisoning. Everything that the company got canceled by Amazon through some glitch. Like there was some glitch in the system that the AI flagged something as being some problem, and without warning they just shut everything down, pulled all the books, and there was like no way to get in touch with anybody. Anything that could go wrong in 2021 went wrong, and it just led to me and my wife, whom you've met, Steph. She was listening to some podcast, something somewhere, and she just said, "Oh, it sounded like you might be able to. This might help you." And it was James Nestor's breath, and I downloaded the audiobook because I couldn't read because I would throw up, and I listened to the whole thing in a day, and from that moment, everything changed.
What is? I'm not
And
familiar with that book. What is
it
that?
is it's basically the theory. And it's the whole school of like once you go there, it leads you to Wim Hof. It leads you to ice baths and kundalini and pranayama. And the thesis, the overall thesis of the book is that we're doing it wrong. These bodies come with an instruction manual that we have forgotten to read. And the biggest problem that with human bodies at this juncture is we're breathing through our mouths too much. We need to keep our mouths closed. We need to breathe through our noses, and basically only inhale through the mouth when we're specifically doing it for pranayama breathwork exercise. And I was like, I'll fucking try anything at this point. I was dead. I couldn't move. I couldn't read. I couldn't work. So I just taped my mouth shut. And for like 2 weeks, I didn't breathe through my mouth for the first time in my whole life. And from that, everything got better, and everything continues to get better. The Meniere's I have not had a drop attack since. The sprain is gone. There was like a tear in my thumb. That's the last remnant of like anything that from those years of being trapped in the bed is just this tiny little pinch nerve right here that I'm still working on. But everything else has completely healed itself.
Wow.
And there were side effects, and that was one of the videos I was listening to. Is does meditation have side effects? Because a big part of it is meditation. And I've never been good at meditation, but this is the first time that meditation actually started to work for me, because it's meditation with specific breath, either holds, which is when you have a lung full of air, or a retention, which is when you have a lung devoid of air. And when you sit in those positions with either the retention or the breath hold, things will start to come to you. And because of all of the traumas and the accidents and nearly dying. Because of the Meniere's, they didn't know what it was, and they gave me an overdose of prednisone, and I almost lost consciousness and fell down my stairs and died. And it was a whole thing. It was this great ongoing problem. And I started doing the breath work as the book was laying out, and I started seeing things. So my meditation had side effects, and I started seeing, an eye, and the eye would change into the world, and then at one point, I saw my face completely melt away and become a blank slate, then turn into a Cro-Magnon man face, and it was a complete accidental third eye opening that I was not planning for, but am now experiencing on a regular basis, and that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to do this, is because I didn't know that any of that was part of your world.
You didn't?
We had never talked about any of that.
What the hell? That's surprising.
The fact that you reached out to me at this point in time, just completely randomly, and you were like, "Mark, do my podcast," and I finally, got the chance to catch up on it, and I was like, "Holy shit, I have to do this podcast!"
Wow,
the timing on this is too weird.
So it sounds like you had a spontaneous, not spontaneous since you were doing breath work, but Kundalini experience.
An unexpected Kundalini experience, we could say.
Yeah. That's how it goes usually.
Yeah. It was, and one of the things that really stuck with me that Jessa said was when she was in that, not that I've overdosed on meth, or been visited by aliens or anything like that. But when I came out of that sort of spontaneous surprise third eye opening, it was everything was so clear to me in a way that it had never been before. And the first thing I thought was, I can't wait to tell people. Everyone's gonna understand. And when she said that, I just started laughing, because I came out of that and I was so excited and jazzed to just start telling people, what was really happening behind the curtain. And and I just met with resounding silence.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Story of my life.
It was amazing. So I finally had someone else to talk about these things with. It's just been me here with the books, going, there's weird stuff going on. I swear it, everybody.
Well, the main thing is that's totally normal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I talk to students all the time who experience this all the time. And often it only takes a little bit of spiritual practice. But what you may find is it doesn't come back again for ever or for years. Usually those experiences are like the proverbial first one's always free or beginner's luck experiences when you get into this stuff. Yeah.
First taste is free. It was fascinating. I fully expected that to happen. I fully expected the first taste to never come again. It's been pretty regular. Since that happened, I can access it pretty easily now. And most of the time it's through the breath work, but sometimes I don't need to be doing the breath work to get there. But I mean, I've been to some interesting places recently. I have been in the stars, just free floating in space. I've been on a beach, meditating, somewhere very far away, very long ago.
And these are visions you're having while with eyes closed?
Yes.
Okay.
Really interesting stuff, man. That I was I didn't know was there. I had no idea.
So what do you make of this?
It does feel like there's an ocean. The drop of water that falls into the into the body, into the lake, whatever it is, into the collective lake, feels like a pretty accurate metaphor. But we've never been apart. Like, that's the thing. It was my entire life I've been terrified of death. And when I came out of that initial activation, it was gone. I had like the LSD experience where you come down from climbing a tree and all of a sudden you believe in Christ for the first time. Like, there was before and after. And nothing's been the same since then. And they say it's all that stuff. Like, when the student is ready, the master will appear. When you get out of the way, when you follow the Tao, and make yourself open to it, things start to happen. All of that stuff is just, it happens. It's really, as fruity as it sounds, like, as cliche as it sounds, and like that 14-year-old, mocking the books on Magick at the bookstore that you were, like, instantly I was the reticent, open to it, but nothing's really proven itself to me instantly to, oh, I get it. We've always been here.
That's quite a shift.
It was a huge shift. What's your take on soul families?
That was a complete subject change after all of that. Shall I respond to everything that you said first?
Yes, absolutely.
That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah, that's great. That's completely normal, very healthy.
Okay. Good.
Do you have a meditation practice?
It's the pranayama. I haven't discovered any any sort of chakra work I do is just based on, like, specifically seeking something out. And I think a big part of it, because I realized that, because the ear was fucked up and the right shoulder was fucked up and the right thumb was fucked up and my entire right side was completely shutting down. And I think that was an aspect of, a very closed chakra. Okay. And I think my feminine side was very unhealthy. I'm now getting into if I don't know if you're familiar with it, there might be a different word for it, but the root chakra. There's an exercise.
I refer to it as the butthole or fart chakra.
Sure, the technical term, the fart chakra.
Yes,
it needs work. I think that's where I'm. I need the most sort of attention at this juncture. So I'm working on Dantian breathing, which is lower belly breathing, to open that up. So it's been an interesting journey, but I'm very interested in doing more, classic meditation. But I don't know where to start, and I'm just sort of following the breadcrumbs as they come to me at this point.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, this is a very universal experience. Why it happens, when it happens, total mystery to everyone. Complete mystery. Nobody knows. People will say all these things about like, well, it is the karma of your previous life's practice ripening. But I mean, who knows, right? But it happens. And in general, the proper response is, number one, don't get too excited. Do not go founding new religions.
Right.
Do not think that anything that you are seeing is objectively real.
Yeah.
You're just interacting with your mind in a new way.
Right.
And develop a daily meditation routine.
Yeah.
And I don't like, I used to get into these conversations about like this style versus that style. I don't think that's particularly not for beginners. It's not too important to worry about. It's just the discipline. And so Buddhist styles are good. They're often more body oriented. Hindu styles are good. Those can be more, like you say, chakra oriented. Even just meditating on the third eye is very good. There's even Christian styles, but you being, I imagine you might want to avoid that one.
And I'm not closed off to the idea,
Yeah. Well, okay.
I'm not gonna teach at any youth colleges. I'm not gonna.
Well, this brings up an interesting point, actually, which is that don't discount your spiritual upbringing, because that's still energy that is sitting there waiting to be used.
Right.
To use that metaphor for it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a language that you have that is embedded and imprinted on you from an extremely young age. So that's powerful imagery for you, I'd imagine.
Very much so.
But I mean,
I've sort of done away with demonizing events of the past.
Okay.
It's because it doesn't serve anything. There's no growth there. There's no healthiness in dwelling on it. You said something fascinating, which was on one. I don't remember what episode it was, but it was the way your focus shifts. You used to want different things, and now sort of your primary driving force is like, gee, it'd really be nice if I could just get one more second between a stimulus coming in and my reaction time. Like that.
Yeah.
That was so resonant for me. Because
exactly.
all the wiring of past trauma and all that stuff will just come out in ways that are completely unreasonable. And
I think that trauma. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, that's been my main focus right now is trying to find that extra millisecond between stimulus and reactivity.
That's great.
The reactive mind is a big one.
The reactive mind. Yeah. Yeah. No. He was right about that. He wasn't all wrong.
He was right about that.
Just meditation. Yeah. You're LA. You have access to literally everything you could possibly want.
Right. There's even an Aisha Institute out here.
There you go. So develop a. I mean, gratuitous self plug. I teach all of this, including pranayama. At Magick.me. It's the Mastering Meditation course, and I think it's the best course available on the topic anywhere, but that's a shameless self-plug, so that is available. But
I'm glad we could do a shameless self-plug. That's why we're here.
But you certainly don't need to take that. I'm saying this to the audience, just people interested in meditation. You certainly don't need to take that course. There's I even have free videos on meditation on my YouTube. So you can check that stuff out. There's one with cat in it even. Yeah, that one is worth checking out.
Okay.
But yeah, that's exciting. I mean, that's a. Did you expect something like that to ever happen?
No, absolutely not. I didn't even know it was possible.
And so, do you have any thoughts on what it is or why it happened?
I don't. I have no. I mean, like, loose theories and something you said about, your past karma finally coming back to you. Work I'd put in. I don't know. I genuinely, everything is just sort of a thesis at this point with no actual conclusions. Very much like, the Manson book. Just, I've got a lot of ideas. I've got a lot of threads that I'm just sort of, tugging at, going, where does this go? What could this be?
You should definitely take the Charles Manson route and use your new powers, your newfound powers, to start a cult of impressionable young people.
I mean, I've been involved in, enough myself that I think I could do a pretty good job running a cult.
Yeah, there you go.
We did some great work today.
yeah, we did. Yeah, covered some interesting ground there. Well, I guess we've been talking for 2 hours, 20 minutes. I didn't realize.
Even got a twist ending out of it.
Damn. Well, what advice do you have?
Is there anything we didn't get to? Is there anything you wanted to add?
What advice?
Halloween-y enough.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. No, this is actually a serious question. I actually do have to ask you this. How involved in esoteric stuff is Clive Barker actually? Because there's stuff in his books. The Great and Secret Show is obviously about real magic. And from talking to people like Peter Atkins, the question is kind of like, well, how much of the occult stuff in Clive Barker stuff was him? How much of it is stuff that he picked up from Peter and Jeff from Coil?
Right.
What's the deal there?
I mean, he considers himself a magician.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he is. He's said that to me. I've heard him say it in interviews. He's done, and sex magic is, the big one for him. So there is a lot of fluids, that will get spilled during his rites. And I mean, even in photo shoots, I've seen things like people hung upside down from crosses, pentagrams laid out, and then they're cut and spun, and they bleed out onto the pentagram. So he is there invoking things. What those things are, what the specific rites are that he's done or still does, I don't know. He never got that deep with me, but he has a lot of books on magic. What's the publisher? Llewellyn. Yeah, he has. Yeah. I'd say that every third book on his shelf is a Llewellyn book.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
That's nuts.
I think, yeah.
What the fuck?
He's got a lot of those books.
I'm mostly disturbed specifically that it's Llewellyn books for some reason. Like, what?
I don't know why.
Is he doing like Silver Ravenwolf? Is it because teenagers like those books?
Maybe. Very possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what he never got into that with me. Why specifically those, but he would pull a lot of them off the shelf and share them with me. And
what did he tell you about it?
He never got into any specifics. Like the biggest shift he was responsible for in my life was opening my eyes to the idea of Christ as eternal in the sort of Gnostic viewpoint.
How did you feel in that moment where you left a Christian cult to work for Clive Barker, the devil himself, and he's telling you to believe in Gnostic Jesus? Like, did you feel like you couldn't escape?
What a question! What a question, man! No one's ever put it to me that way.
And it was just hanging there. I mean, I don't know.
It was just like just magical fruit. I mean, you're looking back, it's crazy. You look back at that with as much objectivity as you can, and it sounds insane. In the moment, I was so distraught. Like, I had gone through an enormous crisis of faith. I had a complete nervous breakdown at that point, and he entered my life at that time, and so it was very helpful for me to understand that there was more to it than this very literal interpretation. And it's a really scary thing and I understand why, if you're a born again Christian, you don't want to hear outside ideas because it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And as someone who believed in it wholesale, it literally, as opposed to metaphorically, which is ironic now to me because the metaphor is so much more beautiful than the literal, than taking everything literally. And it has so much more life to it. It's so much more just abundant, that I was in such a bad place that him coming up and enlightening me to this other aspect of looking at something was so life-giving. I remember I was with Steph. We weren't married yet, and she'd fallen asleep. We were staying at a friend's house, and she'd fallen asleep. And I was just Clive had given me this book called the Gnostic Jesus, I think, and changed my life. And I couldn't put it down. And I got to this certain point where it suddenly made sense to me that it was more of a living metaphor. That as Jess has said, you understand at a certain point that we're all Christ, and that was so real to me and so life affirming that just because I didn't believe in this literal thing anymore didn't mean that was the end of everything. It was like when you suddenly think that any sort of spirituality is bullcrap, and all you have is this, like, what is there left to live for? And suddenly I was given more oxygen. And I remember I literally broke down and I started crying hardcore. And I just went to where Steph was sleeping and I just like hugged her crying until I fell asleep. And it was like one of the most beautiful moments that I'd ever had at that time. And Steph like ended up buying the book for me, and it's this book that like has bonded us, because at that time I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know if I even wanted to marry her anymore. We'd been together for like 12 years or something at that point, and I was like, we were talking about breaking up because I was in such a bad headspace. And it's saved us. And now, we're married. We've been married for over a decade. We have a crazy 7-year-old daughter downstairs. She just got home from school. I can hear her caterwauling. It was beautiful. It was, the scariest part was that initial sort of, the safety net has been removed. Everything I thought was real is gone, and I don't know even what to think anymore. And that was sort of the first thing that pointed me in any direction whatsoever. And it was fantastic. It was like a breath of fresh air, like oxygen for the first time, after being deprived of it for months and months.
Did you talk to him about these experiences?
Absolutely, yeah. He gave me the book because I was sharing the experiences with him of having lost faith and being terrified and not knowing what to make of it. And what if I'm wrong? What if Jesus is judging me for leaving the church and all this stuff? And the way that he spoke about it, and he also calls himself Christian, which is also fascinating and blew my mind.
I've noticed that. Yeah. I remember back in the 90s. He used to be on Loveline all the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
Loveline.
And so, like, I would always hear him on Loveline, and he did. I remember. I still remember him mentioning that, and I was like, "What the fuck?" But yeah,
right. And you're like, "How can you reconcile the two?" So it suddenly made sense to me. Like in that metaphorical sense, I could finally look beyond that sort of rigid, definition of what it means to be a Christian, and it opened up a whole new world to me.
And so, what was the definition, the new definition that you adopted?
The new definition that I adopted is that we can all be Christ. That we all, that the story of dying and being resurrected is a personal story, and that the flame, as it were, the spark is eternal, and you don't have to worry about, you don't have to cling to ego as much because it is not the end all be all.
Well, you seem much more relaxed, so that's good.
Thank you. I feel much more relaxed. I feel like I was pretty. I was pretty tense back then. I was, but a lot of it.
You didn't seem tense.
Inside it was apocalyptic.
Oh no. Okay.
It was a constant apocalypse because I felt like I had so much to prove, and B, it was as wonderful as it was equally abusive. And that abuse drove me to like basically desperation. Like I was so desperate to make a project happen, to put my name on things, to be a creative person. And I never knew when the ride was going to end, and when the ride was going to turn, because it was very much like there was always a monster laying in wait. You would be having the time of your life there, watching movies and hearing Hellraiser stories, and it was like paradise. And then the next moment, there would be a radical mood swing and shift in energy, and it would be a nightmarish hell. And you never knew when that moment was coming.
I mean, it sounds like having an alcoholic parent or a drug addicted parent. Yeah. That sounds not fun.
For sure. Very much.
Wow. Your story is so interesting, though. I mean, for lots of reasons, but I was just thinking as you were telling it, how thematic it is to so many people. There's a couple major themes in American spiritual life, I think. One of them is dealing with evangelical Christianity, and often growing up in evangelical Christianity. That's not something that people in most other countries have to deal with. Certainly they don't. I mean, yes, in Latin America, yes, in Africa, yes, in South Korea, but and lots of other places. But most other cultures in traveling around have their own indigenous tradition.
Yeah.
And that includes even places like England.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of there, and they don't have the same, they might have religious people, but they don't have the fucking nut job evangelicals like we do. Like nobody makes them like us. Like, and this is where they dumped the people that they couldn't,
we're
they
the
didn't
best
want
in the world.
Yeah. Well, this is where they dumped the worst of the worst in the world because they couldn't deal with them. And then we're their descendants. What was the question?
You said the story.
Your story
is spiritual journey.
Your story is so interesting because like that theme of dealing with the evangelicals it just has to be reckoned with, and like the English don't have to deal with that, Europeans don't have to deal with it, but Americans do. And one example of that is like the temple of or the Satanic Temple. Right, where it's like being into the occult in the U.S. immediately takes on political dimensions that it just doesn't in other places. Here, it's a battle stance against the evangelicals, and it has been since at least the 80s. And that war is, baby. Yep, and that war is heating up again. So, but also kind of like the workplace, like employer versus employee dynamic is on a lot of young people's minds these days. So just pointing that out, I mean, there's a lot of like tensions there that people I think a lot of people are wrestling with.
There's a lot of tension out there right now. I think your channel's doing wonderful things to assuage those tensions.
I was trying to tell if that was sarcastic or not.
No, that was dead serious.
Okay. Very nice.
That's great. Steph and I have been together over half our lives now, and she still can't tell when I'm being sarcastic. So you don't stand a chance.
Oh boy. Well, I think we covered some good territory there, huh?
I think so. Yeah, 2.5 hours. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's probably bookmark it for now. But this was great.
More people can listen.
Yeah, this was great though. I really enjoyed enjoyed that you came on. Oh, tell people, plug, shameless plug, please.
Shameless plug, Encyclopocalypse Publications. Follow us on Twitter, on Instagram. Buy our books. Hellraiser the Toll, Manborg, the novelization, Tech by Vincenzo Natali. We got books. We got a new Richard Elfman book coming out, the Schlemazel of Sublime, which is like the Fearless Vampire Killers meets Woody Allen's Love and Death, which is a fantastic combination I never thought would exist. We're having fun. We got scary books. We got books about scary things, and we got some kids books too. You know, it's not all terror. Now your plug. It's your turn.
Yes. Well, my plug will come after this.
What would you tell people to watch this Halloween season?
Oh, to watch. You know what we should do sometime? Now that you mentioned that, I guess we don't have time to do it for this year, but we can. It doesn't have to be Halloween. But I was doing an episode format where I was watching a movie with like we would do I think we did Eyes Wide Shut, we did The Dark Knight, or me and a guest would watch a movie and then kind of just analyze and kind of pick it apart as a podcast.
We should do that.
That would be good. One horror movie that I saw recently that or rewatched recently that I hadn't seen in a long time is The Howling. When's the last time you saw The Howling?
Hey, I represent that whole library.
You do.
The Howling.
What do you know?
The Howling is based on a series of books. That dude Gary Brandner. His whole library was out of print, and we do the paperbacks. We do the audiobooks.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love The Howling, man.
The Howling is great. I rewatched it. I loved it when I was a teenager because there's boobs in it. But rewatching it as an adult, it is the most hilarious satire of New Agers.
Yeah,
outside of Woody Allen's Sleeper, which is funnier, and everyone should watch that. But The Howling is an amazing send up of California, kind of like bougie therapy encounter.
My friend therapy types. Amanda, she's a production designer. She because it was when Werewolf, which we did, the cross country screenings of before every screening. It was The Howling. It was we screened The Howling in every draft house theater across the nation, and then went and signed werewolf books. And my friend Amanda was going to go to one with me, but my car broke down, so couldn't go. But her review of The Howling is, I think, the greatest one-line description ever. It's network with werewolves. It is. It is such a great satire. Is the perfect word.
That's hilarious.
Such a phenomenal satire of that culture with werewolves. It's great.
Yeah. I really, really enjoyed rewatching that. I also recently rewatched the original Thing from Another World, the Howard Hawks one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was excellent.
It's a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
We should tell everyone to go out and watch Hereditary. That's
man, fuck that movie. Fuck that movie. Seriously. Did you see Midsommar?
No,
I didn't see that either. That's the same guy, right?
Same guy. So yeah, I saw Beau is Afraid, but Midsommar didn't seem to be about mommy issues, so I wasn't interested.
Yeah, for some reason, wwhenever I thought about you at Clive Barker's house, I would always think about Mommy Dearest.
Right.
Makes sense. Him being like, Christina, the floor's not clean. You call this clean? And just attacking you with wire hangers.
Yeah. Joan Crawford and Norma Desmond. Those were my two touchstones up there on the hill.
Sounds good. All right. Well, until next time.
Fantastic talking with you. This was a treat.
All right. Hope you really, really enjoyed that. I definitely Had a lot of fun in that conversation. Meet us at magick.me, magick.me, my school for magic, meditation, and mysticism, where you can learn all the skills you need to unleash your true self. I will see you in class, and until next time, hang in there.